we have a brain drain towards all of these innovative knowledge centers, but it leaves everybody else behind and the
Yes.
population's left behind. But in a way, this clinical research and ability to work in these smaller companies or, hopefully in the, bigger companies, I think it brings to mind competition, but competing with a higher level individual
Yes.
makes you better. If
Absolutely.
if you have
Absolutely.
someone better to compete with, then
Yes.
you're gonna
Yes.
strive more.
Colombia is the most unequal place in Latin America. It will take for a baby that is born today in Colombia 7 generations, 300 years, about 300 years, to reach the income level of a regular Colombian, of an average Colombian.
Oh
So a
wow.
baby born in poverty in Colombia today will
Yeah.
take him or her 11 generations, 300 years. So it's just impossible to get out of poverty in Colombia.
Right.
That's really what I'm saying. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens in other countries, but in Colombia, it's more pronounced. Don't ask me
Wow.
why, but it's more pronounced.
Mhm.
In Denmark, it will probably take 2 generations for a baby born in a lower socioeconomic area. But in Colombia, as I said, 300 years, 11 generations. To close that gap is to change the economic aging of the country.
Yeah. Welcome to Medicine, Motherhood, and Missions, the podcast where real life meets big dreams. I'm Johanna, your host, and every episode will dive into inspiring stories from PAs, doctors, and professionals who are also dreamers and mission-driven changemakers. From the hospital halls to the hearts of our homes, and even into communities across the world, we'll laugh, learn, and uncover the challenges, triumphs, and everything in between as we see life through each other's perspectives. Looking for more joy and balance in your career? Don't miss our free guide, How to Be a Fulfilled Provider. Your quick boost of encouragement with tips to help you thrive while juggling all your hats you wear. And if you've got little dreamers at home, check out Little Evie's Big Dreams on Amazon. These stories are meant to spark imagination, courage, and kindness, perfect for bedtime or anytime. Follow along as Evie, a little Sri Lankan girl, brings joy and creativity to her community while daring to dream big. This podcast is also brought to you with love by the Ephraim Foundation International, because empowering children and families in rural Sri Lanka isn't just charity, it's continuing a legacy of hope and creating futures full of possibility. So grab your cup of coffee or tea, settle in, and get ready for uplifting conversations that will leave you inspired and equipped to make a greater impact. Let's jump in. Welcome back to Medicine, Motherhood, and Missions, the podcast where we explore stories of innovation, impact, and hope at the intersections of healthcare, community, and global change. Today, I'm joined by Julio Martinez-Clark, a trailblazer in clinical research transformation. He is a CEO of bioaccess, Synapse Global Theranostics Incorporated, and CSO of amavita, Heart and Vascular Health, leading initiatives that are reshaping the future of medical innovation across Latin America and beyond. With over 2 decades of cross-industry leadership spanning healthcare, telecommunications, and venture capital, Julio has become a trusted partner to more than 100 companies seeking faster, cost-effective clinical trials worldwide. From accelerating first-in-human studies through bioaccess to pioneering radiopharmaceutical access through Synapse Global Theranostics, Julio is proving that emerging markets can be hubs of innovation, equity, and world-class healthcare solutions. In our conversation today, we'll dive into this journey from Colombia to the global stage, explore the ethical and cultural dimensions of cross-border research, and learn how families and communities are being transformed through medical breakthroughs once thought out of reach. So thank you so much, Julio, for coming on the podcast. I'm very intrigued to talk to you further about this and how you even started on this journey. You started out as a telecom engineer, and now so much more has happened. So tell us about this journey of yours and how it all started.
Sure, Johanna. Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure to
Mhm.
join your podcast. And my journey started in Colombia, kind of all places. I come from Barranquilla, which is a smaller city in the Colombian Caribbean coast. And I study electrical engineering in Bogota, the capital of Colombia, and then work in the telecom and networking industry. I started working for a couple of local distributors in Colombia, and then I moved to the US around 1995, and I worked for first for Nortel Networks, which was one of the largest telecom networking equipment manufacturers in the world, Canadian company. And then I worked for Lucent Technologies, which was also one of the top telecom and networking companies in the world. And my life changed and I had to switch careers because there were some industry changes. So I started different ventures. I got involved in selling equipment, selling computers, then got involved in real estate, had a successful real estate investment company in Orlando for many years. And then the crash of
2008.
2017, I'm sorry, 2008, 2007 happened. And then I had to switch gears. And then I took a year, sabbatical year, and wrote a book about uh, human consciousness and topics related to spirituality because I had the time to do it. It was something that I always wanted to do.
Right.
So I found an opportunity at Johns Hopkins University Hospital, in the cardiology department in Baltimore, where I work in an international project related to Trinidad and Tobago, where the hospital was
Okay.
advising the local government, on how to run more efficiently their hospital, the big government hospital in the country. And I traveled to Trinidad and Tobago a lot. I was, of course, working inside the cardiology department at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, and I got to see how a hospital works. Even though my father was a doctor, my brother uh, is a doctor, I was not really involved in medicine at all until I worked for Johns Hopkins. And then I moved to Miami, from Baltimore to Miami. And my brother Pedro, who is really the star of everything that is happening that we're going to discuss today, he trained at Harvard as an interventional cardiologist at the Beth Israel Medical Center in Boston. And he moved to Miami and he became a professor at the University of Miami. And he met his mentor in Miami, the chief of interventional cardiology, Dr. William O'Neill, who is considered one of the top interventional cardiologists in the world. And they worked together for many years, developed a very, very close friendship that still exists today. And they advised a lot of medical device companies, US startup companies, that wanted to do first in human trials overseas. And they advised them in the development, in the preclinical testing in animal models, and then the clinical testing in humans, more specifically in first in human or early feasibility clinical trials.
Right.
And not many people know that US companies, US startups, when they want to do a first in human trial, they really, really struggle to execute their clinical plans in the United States or in Western countries, in developed countries, because it's really, really difficult to get these trials approved for many reasons. I mean, it's difficult to recruit patients. It's difficult to recruit investigators in the US. It's just difficult to have a clear pathway at the FDA for approval of these trials. It takes too long, it's costly, et cetera, et cetera. So these companies are pretty much forced to go overseas to explore options in hospitals in other countries, like countries in Latin America. So they also go to Eastern Europe, they go to Australia, but Latin America is closer to the United States than those other places. But those other places also have advantages. But Latin America is kind of the first, one of the first options that they consider. Countries like Panama, Dominican Republic, Colombia, even Mexico, but Paraguay is also a player in this space, etc. So anyway, the point is that Dr. O'Neill and Pedro decided to create bioaccess, which is the company that I've been leading for the past 15 years. And bioaccess is a contract research organization. Pharmaceutical companies or medical device companies, they contract the services of a third party called a contract research organization, a CRO, to help them execute clinical research, clinical trials anywhere in the world. So it's a big industry, and we're one company of many companies. But what makes us unique is that when Dr. O'Neill and Pedro, my brother, were working together in these first in human trials, they realized that there was a need to have a smaller CRO specialized in first in human medical device trials. There was none. Even today, it's not a common thing. Most of the CROs that you find are CROs that cater to the pharmaceutical industry, big pharma,
Mhm.
Novartis, Merck, the big players.
Right.
And
Mhm.
they run larger trials, 2,000
Mhm.
people, 20 countries. I mean, big, big trials, big contracts. And if you're a small startup, 3 people with a couple $1 million in the bank, you call IQVIA, they don't even answer the phone. They don't answer your emails because you're not their target client. Bioaccess is different. I mean,
Mm.
we help these smaller companies and
Mhm.
we are nimble, we're agile, we adapt to their needs. We're
Mhm.
also a small company, only about 30 people. So we move really, really fast at their pace because that's really the game that they want to play. They want
Mhm.
speed. They need
Yeah.
speed to approval for these
Yeah.
trials. Because
Mhm.
imagine these companies have been investing money and time and
Mhm.
effort developing a technology, a medical technology, and they need to know if it works or not. They need to raise the next round of funding.
Mhm.
So they need to show their investors that the device is safe and effective so that they can raise more money. They can speak with a potential buyer of the company because
Yeah.
these companies are created to be sold, right? They
Yeah.
get created usually at universities in the US with the goal of being acquired eventually by
Mhm.
Medtronic, Boston Scientific, the big
Right.
players. And they also use these first in human clinical data to
Mhm.
show the FDA that the device is presumed to be safe and efficacious,
Mhm.
and that they want to do a bigger trial. It's
Mm.
usually called a pivotal study in the United States, which usually involves 200 patients instead of 20 patients,
Right.
like the first in human trial. So that's kind of the cycle of innovation. And then they will start doing the pivotal trial, they get acquired, usually before they start the pivotal or during the pivotal or after the pivotal. They get
Mhm.
eventually acquired by a big player like Medtronic or J&J or Boston Scientific. So
Mhm.
anyway, so going back to your question, I joined Pedro and O'Neill. The company was just on paper, had a
Mhm.
couple $1,000 in the bank. And then I was tasked with the mandate of putting together a team
Mhm.
and grow the company somehow. So, and that's what I did. And fast forward 15 years, we are now a team of about 30 people, as I said, and we have experience in probably 10 different countries. And we have become the leading first in human
Mhm.
CRO in the medical device and the medtech space in the US with special focus in Latin America.
That's really interesting how you saw the need, or your brother and Dr. O'Neill saw the need for um, those smaller startup tech companies that were trying to get their devices out into the populations. But what brought your focus to the emerging markets in Latin America, and how did that, come into the
Mhm.
foremost, site of your company?
Yes, yeah, because as I said, these companies, they sponsor the clinical trials that we get involved in. They are, as I said, smaller startups,
Mhm.
usually 3 to 5 people, no more than 10 people. I mean,
Right.
that's kind of finding a startup with 10 people is just like, that's weird. You shouldn't have
Right.
10 people. You should have three, five. You're spending too much money, right?
Right.
So,
Right. Okay.
so they want speed. They want speed. So we need to give them what they need, right?
Mhm.
We need to, our value proposition should revolve around
Mhm.
speed, speed to approval, speed to having the first patient implanted with the device,
Mhm.
speed to gather the data. So they really, really want to move fast. And this industry, the clinical trial industry, at least in the first in human phase, is like water. It,
Mhm.
it flows where it finds the least
It's at least
resistance, right?
yeah.
It goes like this. So we need to find them places where they can get the trials approved really, really fast. Of
Mhm.
course, without compromising quality and ethical
Right.
standards and following international guidelines. So we have found places that can check all the boxes.
Mhm.
Places like Panama, places like Colombia, Paraguay, Dominican Republic, El Salvador.
Mhm.
So they cannot find speed in the United States. They cannot find
Right.
speed in Canada. They cannot find speed in Germany or in
Mhm.
Western Europe. So they have to go to places like this in
Mhm.
emerging markets. Because
Mhm.
in emerging markets, the needs are different, or the way things work is different. For example, in the US, you have large hospital systems. You don't have single buildings with
Mhm.
one hospital in a building. You don't really
Mhm.
see that. You see large hospitals. Unless you go to a rural community, you find a
Right.
community hospital. But most of the
Mhm.
hospitals in the US, in the cities, in urban areas, are big hospital systems.
Mhm.
There is your academic hospitals. So imagine navigating the waters of the bureaucracy to get meetings done. The investigator is busy, then he's traveling in a conference. So it's just difficult to find investigators that really want to commit to the study. And
Mhm.
you're competing with big money from the NIH and big money from pharma. So
Mhm.
they're busy with their research, and you're a small startup, three people,
Right.
you're looking to recruit five patients, and they're like, well, it's not really what we do. Move
Yeah.
on. I mean, we're
Right.
busy with something else. So it's just difficult to recruit investigators in the United States,
Mhm.
not to mention recruiting patients. Patients, if they have options, they don't want to subject themselves to a first in human trial, to a technology that has not
Mm.
been tested in
Mhm.
humans. It has only been tested in a couple of pigs or a couple of
Mhm.
dogs or whatever. So it's just difficult.
Yeah.
However, in Latin America, things are different. In Latin America,
Mhm.
you don't find hospital systems. It's really odd to find that.
Mm.
You find one building with 10 floors and one
Yeah.
hospital, and that's it. And it has one CEO and a couple of managers, and that's it. And you pick up the phone and you call the CEO because probably you went to high school with him or something. It's part of your network. So that's
Right.
how things work.
Yeah.
And they need the income, they need the money.
Right.
They want this income because relying on the insurance or the healthcare system of
Mhm.
all those countries is it's not easy because these are developing economies. The
Mhm.
money doesn't flow as fast as it
Yeah.
flows in other places.
Mhm.
So hospitals easily in Colombia, for example, can have. I mean, a hospital easily can wait a year or two or three
Mhm.
to pay for something that they invoice today. So imagine the delay. So it becomes a really
Mhm.
difficult business to run. If you have payments out
Mhm.
3 years or something, and then
Yeah.
when they pay you, they want to discount the
Mhm.
invoice. Right? I owe you
Right.
$1 million. So if you want a payment, I can pay you 500,000. Take it or
Right.
leave it, or sue me, or keep waiting. That's how it works in Latin America. So clinical trial income is really something that hospitals
Right.
desire because it's cash. They're dealing with US companies, so it's all good. And they also receive training, advanced training. So the
Mhm.
investigator gets trained in advanced technologies. So not to mention the benefits to the patient. The patient
Mhm.
have access to advanced technologies that
Mhm.
are not available in the country yet
Yeah.
because there's usually a mismatch or
Mhm.
a in medical technologies
Mhm.
being available in emerging economies like the ones in Latin America. US companies, when they want to sell a product, a medical product, they want to sell it in the bigger markets, the United
Right.
States, Canada, North America, Europe, Western Europe, and probably Japan.
Mhm.
Venturing into China, India, that's really difficult. But those markets, the North America, Western Europe, and Japan are the key
I
markets for
do.
these companies. Exactly. So they don't really want to sell these products in Latin America
Mhm.
because it's
Yeah.
just difficult. They have to rely on distributors and
Mhm.
this and that.
Mhm.
Too many countries. In Latin America has over 30 countries, and you
Mhm.
have to get approvals, market clearance in each country. So it's just
Right.
too much work. So anyway, my point is that
Mhm.
very few technologies that are already approved by the FDA are available
Mhm.
in Latin America. Very
Yeah.
few. So patients don't
Yeah.
really have options, right? That's one thing. The other thing is patients have very difficult access to the healthcare system because it's
Mhm.
usually a government run system.
Mhm.
So the waiting lists are very long.
Mhm.
Insurance companies do not want to pay or high cost procedures. They
Mhm.
make you wait, they make you suffer. They don't
Right.
answer the phone. You cannot make an appointment. You have to go in person. You have to show up at the insurance company at 6 a.m. trying
Yeah.
to be the first in line when they open the
Right.
doors at 8 and to see if you
Mhm.
can get an appointment, and they give you an appointment and then you have to wait 3 months. It's
Right.
just difficult.
Yeah.
And then they
Yeah.
prescribe you something and then the drug is not available. And then
Mhm.
you have to pay out of pocket, even though you have the right to
Yeah.
receive the drug. And
Yeah.
then you have to find the money. It's just
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
So when you offer a patient in Latin America to
Mhm.
be part of a clinical trial, you're really, really offering hope.
Mhm. Yeah.
You're offering access to the system.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's interesting because it's talking about equity and inclusion
mhm,
of different parts of the regions of the world, populations that may not have access to certain types of newer technologies. And this area of, clinical research, that trials that you're able to work with allows for patients to access newer technologies, um, at a rate that may not be always available to them. So that is a
yeah,
really interesting aspect of this um, particular way that you guys are working with smaller tech startup companies that have a product, have an idea, can't get it into those big pharma, the big industry names, but they can help smaller emerging markets and populations thereby. So it's very
exactly.
interesting, very interesting. So, because I did read a little bit about how you have the Synapse Global Theranostics and cancer care, looking at different ways of targeting radiation.
Hmm.
I couldn't find exactly how for particular kinds of cancer, I'm not sure. Can you explain a little bit about that and how because you talked about in or on the site, you talk about the bottlenecks and
Yes.
how your company can target those 3 bottlenecks and overcome the challenges.
Yes. Just like we created an industry
Mhm,
15 years ago with bioaccess, we pioneer the first in human medical device industry in Latin America. Before bioaccess, even today, you find very informal help.
mhm,
If you're a startup company looking to do a first in human trial in Latin America, usually what you find is local individuals in each country. They hardly speak English. They're not regional, just one guy in Mexico
mhm,
City, for example, who thinks he can help you with your clinical needs, with your first in human needs. So you find these individuals here and there. They're not really organized professional companies. So that's
right.
one thing. You also find some CROs, local CROs,
Mhm,
which are usually started by former employees of
mhm,
big CROs like IQVIA, PPD, Parexel. So you
right.
find these in each country. You have 2 or 3. Some do better than the others. They rely a lot on the local market because
Mhm,
in countries like Brazil, like in Mexico, Argentina, you have some drug development happening.
mhm,
You have some local manufacturing, medical manufacturing happening, and there's a need to have clinical research, local clinical research. And occasionally they get involved with a vaccine trial from a biotech company or something like that.
mhm,
So they're not really focused. Also they get involved in cosmetic trials, in food trials, things like
mhm,
that. So they're not
mhm.
really focused on first in human medical device trials. So that's
Right,
really the area where we excel because we
right.
found that there was
Mhm.
really no expertise in the
Yeah.
region, professional expertise in the region in this specific space. And so we kind of created this industry 15 years ago, and we are the only professional CRO that specifically works in the first in human space
Mhm,
in medical devices. And of course, we can also do biopharma trials,
mhm.
but medical device has been our
Right, right.
path in the past
Yeah.
50 years. So anyway, the point is that just like we created that industry years ago, we're now venturing into another industry
Mhm.
that doesn't exist in Latin America, which is the radiopharmaceutical and theranostic research industry,
Okay.
also
So
in the first in human space.
oh, wow. But right now, there's no real. um, landscape for it currently? Okay.
There's no infrastructure in Latin America.
Okay.
There's no
Mhm.
infrastructure in the United States yet.
Uh-huh.
So one of the bottlenecks that you were mentioning is the
Uh-huh.
fact that radiopharmaceutical companies, startup companies,
Uh-huh.
cannot find enough sites to
Mhm.
run their trials. So there's a huge bottleneck in the industry. So they are
Mhm.
desperately looking for sites where they can run their trials. And they
And
need diversity. They need several
yeah,
sites.
yeah.
You cannot gather the clinical data from
Mhm.
just one site. The FDA
Right.
will not allow that. They want you
Yeah.
to have at least, I don't know, 3 sites and split the data
Yeah.
from patients
Diverse
from different
populations, age groups,
exactly,
genders,
exactly,
regions,
exactly,
so that it can
exactly.
be for all
Yes,
populations. Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
yes.
And so, yeah, because and what kind of cancers or any cancers or, is there any specifics that, you're focusing on?
No, yes and no. The radiopharmaceutical industry is working in three main therapeutic areas: oncology, cardiology, and neurology.
Mhm.
Right? So we are focusing on those three. Of course, oncology seems to be the most developed.
Okay.
And also is an industry where there's a bigger need. I mean,
Uh-huh.
you make a bigger impact. So the
Mhm.
first radiopharmaceutical and theranostic drug approved by the FDA was an oncology drug called Pluvicto a year or so ago. So oncology is really taking the lead here,
Okay.
but neurology and cardiology are a little behind, but eventually they will get there. So we are setting up the infrastructure that is
Mhm.
needed to run these trials.
Yeah.
And setting up this infrastructure involves more than just having a site,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
more than just having a hospital. You need to
Mhm.
have a cyclotron. You have to have local production of radioisotopes
Mhm.
to manufacture the radiopharmaceuticals that you need for these trials. And Latin America doesn't have enough cyclotrons. The cyclotron technology hasn't evolved much in the world. And Latin
Mhm.
America has some old technology, cyclotron technology installed, and
Okay.
and it needs to be updated. The population needs more cyclotrons. So there's a big need in Latin America for more cyclotron technology and more advanced cyclotron technology.
And I think also, even just you also mentioned the talent or the people trained in these
Yes,
measures, but that's where
exactly.
your company comes in to kind of bring those talent and the opportunity to develop these spaces, which is a partnership and trust building process that you're able to provide for the countries that you're going into, right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yes, there's also a talent shortage in the
Mhm,
United States
mhm,
because this is a complex and it's a new field. It's a complex
mhm,
field, so you don't have enough talent in the United States to match the demand for
mhm.
real pharmaceutical research. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a interesting field. I mean, because it's something that's very needed, something that helps a lot of different populations and, companies that are or individuals that have these ideas and have something that they want to offer. But yet there are so many people and pieces to work with that can be opportunities for growth, so to speak,
Yes.
especially in regards to those who have the education and talent and ability to be able to move forward with these types of newer technology and thinking of theranostics. How do you, go about because getting these people and places, put into where you need to be, like through different educational programs or.
Yes. That's what Synapse Global Theranostics is doing.
Mhm,
We are, in essence, a knowledge transfer company.
mhm,
In other words, we come into a hospital,
mhm,
we show them the opportunity that they are missing, meaning the big radiopharmaceutical and theranostic industry. We show them the bottlenecks.
mhm,
We show them the challenges that the industry is facing in terms of talent, in terms of local radioisotope production.
mhm,
We show them the need that the startups, the radiopharmaceutical and theranostic startup have to find capable sites with the right infrastructure. And once they see the money, once they see the opportunity, they're like, wow. I didn't know this industry existed. Thanks for inviting me to the party. Where do I get my tuxedo? I mean, that's usually the attitude that they have.
Right.
And so I tell them, well, the tuxedo is you have to buy a cyclotron and you have to set up the infrastructure, and we're here to help. We can sell you the cyclotron. We can train your staff. Your staff can come to the United States. We have 4 sites, each with one cyclotron in the United States, in the Florida area. We're expanding to 17 more sites across the state and other states in the US. And so we have the experience, we have the staff, we have the knowledge, so we can easily transfer our experience, our knowledge, and train local staff in Latin America. They can come to the United States, we
Mhm.
can go to them, we set up training programs for them so that they can get up to speed and have a world class. We call them MITRI,
Mhm.
Molecular Imaging and Theranostic Research Institutes,
Mm.
MITRIs,
Mhm.
Molecular Imaging and Theranostic Research Institutes. So what we're
Mhm.
doing is we're setting up MITRIs all over Latin America. We just
Okay.
started with the first one in Colombia. It's a
Mhm.
historic event for the region.
Mhm. Yeah.
So Colombia will become the hub for advanced radiopharmaceutical and theranostic research with this
Mhm.
new site. We're setting up another one. That first one was in Bucaramanga. The second one
Mhm.
would probably be in Bogota.
Mhm.
And by the way, the first commercial cyclotron was installed in Bogota, Colombia in 1985. So Colombia
Oh,
has
wow. A
history behind
history, yeah.
this and can take the leadership. The president of the Nuclear Medicine Association of Latin America is a Colombian doctor. It's a lady.
Okay.
And she's also the president of the Colombian Association of Nuclear Medicine. So Colombia
Mhm.
has real
Mhm.
leadership in this space.
Right.
And our job is, I was born and raised in Colombia, as I said, and
Yeah.
I want to see my country flourish. And
Yeah.
my job here is to
Mhm.
create world-class MITRIs in
Mhm.
Colombia and other places in Latin America as well. Of course,
Yeah.
we're speaking with a site with a hospital in Panama. We're speaking with another one in Brazil, etc.
Mhm.
But I really want to see Colombia flourish. Yeah.
That's really interesting, though, because I think in our first discussion, we talked about how, I'm also from Sri Lanka,
Mm.
India, those parts of the world. And when you see the ability to give back to where you're coming from
Yes.
and
Yes.
keep the community employed and flourishing,
Yes.
there's a
Yes.
beauty to that, right? There's something
Absolutely.
such
So
so
gratifying.
valuable.
It's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
gratifying. Yes.
Yeah.
There's no champagne, there's no caviar that matches that feeling.
Yeah, yeah. So that's really something really valuable that you're kind of doing with focusing on emerging markets and this newer, smaller populations that you're able to impact countries and communities that may not have the same opportunities that larger developed countries always have. And
Yes, yes.
so that's
And
really
also to add to what I said and to what you're saying,
Mhm,
Joanna, is we are also setting up the first assembly plant for
mhm,
cyclotrons in Latin America, in
mhm.
Colombia as well, because
Okay.
we see so much potential
Mhm,
in this space that we are partnering with the manufacturer of the
mhm,
cyclotron that we use, Ionetics. It's a
mhm,
company out of Michigan. It's an MIT innovation,
mhm.
the cyclotron that they manufacture. Um, we're setting up the first cyclotron production facility ever in the history of
Yeah.
Latin America.
Wow.
So it's going to be a historic shift in how Latin America is going to play in this space, in the radiopharmaceutical and theranostic research space. And,
Yeah.
not also for
Mhm.
research, also for commercial purposes,
Actual
for
yeah.
regular
Mhm. Nuclear
patient.
medicine, yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It allows them a broader access to medical
Yes.
care in the
Exactly.
end. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what other, like, biggest ethical challenges do you ever have or have found as you navigate these markets and populations?
Well, I think that pretty much everybody who is involved in clinical research is very ethical, to be
Mhm,
honest with you. I haven't really found bad apples in this space. in this industry. Everybody wants to follow international guidelines because it's to everybody's benefit to do
Yeah.
so. Everybody that I deal with is really, really concerned about the patient, about
Mhm.
the well-being of the patient.
Mhm.
For example, just to give you a real story, we're working with a company. We implanted the device in, I think, 5 patients or something like that. And the device didn't work. So we had to bring the patient back, get the devices out, pay for everything,
Mhm.
and also the new surgery to
Mhm.
fix the issue with current technology
Right.
and all the medical care that they need.
Mm.
Because, I mean, it's a US company, it's a US startup. They can easily just walk away, just forget about it and just
Mm.
disappear. But no, I mean, the CEO of the company is
Yeah.
genuinely concerned about
Mhm.
taking care of the patient, even though they're having cash flow issues, even though the device failed, even though they're facing challenges in raising more money. Because imagine, I mean, the
Mm.
device failed. Who is going to invest in a company
Right.
with a failed device? They have to
Yeah.
go back to the drawing board and redesign the
Mm.
device. They need more
Yeah.
funds for that to do another
Mhm.
trial, but
Yeah.
they're really concerned
Yeah.
about the well-being of the patient.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, that's a good
you know,
example. Yeah.
and
And
also,
mhm.
I'm sorry, just to
Okay.
complement my
Yeah.
answer, you have, of course, international guidelines. You have
Mhm.
global quality certifications and
Mhm.
ethical certifications that
Mhm.
many sites in Latin America are already embracing.
Mhm.
So yeah, countries like Colombia, for example, in Colombia, you have a mandated
Mm.
ethical and quality research certification by the Ministry of Health. So you cannot
Mhm.
do research in Colombia
Yeah.
hospital. I mean, the institution, of course, the individual is mandated that everybody in the research team
Mhm.
gets ICH, GCP, good clinical practice training and get
Right.
their own individual certificates. But Colombia goes beyond that. Colombia mandates that every hospital involving human research have this rigorous and expensive certification process.
Mhm. Yeah. And so tell me a little shift now to, through you have your own global trials accelerator podcast,
Yes,
which I've listened to, and it's very interesting. The guests that you have on the show, you learn so much. And
yes,
I really enjoyed listening to that. So
great.
any of you listening, make sure you listen to Global Trials Accelerators podcast. Articles. You're a thought leader for innovators. How do you see your role in shaping the conversation around global clinical research?
That's a great question. I think that we're bringing to the industry something that they didn't know they could have,
Mhm.
right? Very few people know that you can have world-class research done in Panama, for example. If
Mhm.
we don't go out and tell the world about it,
Mhm.
very few companies will come to Panama. So we have an educational role here. And that's why I write all these articles. That's why I
Mhm.
have my podcast. We produce so much content.
Mhm.
We have a very active blog.
Mhm.
So I see myself as an educator first and then a salesperson later.
But that's true. In order to make a sale, you got to educate the patient,
Exactly,
right?
exactly, exactly. Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so that's true. Okay, and
Yeah.
then what gives you hope though about the future of medical innovation in general and in Latin America and beyond?
My hope is that patients in Latin America get treated with the same technologies that patients in the US have access to.
Mhm.
So I think that's really the ultimate goal. I mean, a
Mhm.
patient in Paraguay shouldn't die
Mhm.
because he or she doesn't have access to something that is widely available in the United States.
Yeah.
That's really sad. I
Mhm.
think if I see that, if I
Mhm.
see that a patient have the same level of care, the same access to
Mhm.
technology,
Mhm.
I'd be a happy camper. But it's going to take years, of course, for that to happen. But with clinical research, I think we are helping for that to
Right.
happen. We're closing the gap a little bit.
Mhm.
And at
Yeah.
least, our trials are usually smaller, 5, 20 patients, but at least
Mhm.
we're improving the lives of 20
Right.
people and their
Yeah.
families.
And educating new physicians
Yes,
and
exactly.
hospital
Yes.
systems of that
Yes.
so that
Yes.
so that education and that information, or even later down the line when those devices may become more mainstream, it can be more
Exactly.
effective for more.
Exactly. Knowledge transfer. Knowledge transfer. I think that's the biggest gain that these countries receive beyond money and
Mhm,
etc. is advanced knowledge transfer, because that's why we're developing economies here in Latin America. That's why countries are behind the US and other places, because their societies have not evolved enough
mhm,
to become knowledge societies. They are still agricultural societies, semi-industrial societies. They have not moved to the next level of human development, which is
mhm.
having knowledge societies like the ones
Yeah.
in North America,
Mhm.
Western Europe,
Yeah.
Japan. These
Yeah.
countries live and breathe innovation. I
Mhm.
mean, these countries innovate every single day. The number of patents that get out of Switzerland, that gets out
Mhm.
of the United States, that get us out of Germany, I mean, is incredible. I mean, as compared to the number of patents that get out of Colombia, for example.
Right. Yeah. I think it goes back to what in my our first conversation was the brain drain. Because
Yes, that
the
too.
the people innovating, the people who are sometimes the best of the best in the Western and developed countries are from these other countries, right?
Yes,
And
exactly.
so we have a brain drain towards all of these innovative, more knowledge centers, but it leaves everybody else behind and the
Yes,
population's left behind. But in a way, this clinical research and ability to work in these smaller companies or, hopefully in the, bigger companies through the bigger CROs, if they, are able to transfer that, not just the devices or the medicines or the pharmaceuticals, but transfer that knowledge to the local communities, that would be
yes,
the most ideal for a better global health, right?
exactly. I
Yeah.
usually joke about it and tell people, listen, this is like having Lionel Messi, the biggest soccer star in the world, play with the local team in a small city in
Mhm.
Latin America.
Yeah.
I'm sure that if Messi and Ronaldo and a couple
Mhm.
more of these guys
Yeah.
go for a year to a soccer club in that small city,
Mhm.
that soccer club eventually will become
Mm.
a champion in the
Right.
Latin American Cup or in the National Cup, because it's going to improve their skills, their techniques, and also improve their way of thinking. Right. So it's an osmosis, it's a transfer of knowledge that happens that is going to improve the local team.
Yeah, especially I think it brings to mind competition, but competing with a higher level individual
Yes,
makes you better.
absolutely.
If you have
Absolutely.
someone better to compete with, then
Yes.
you're gonna
Yes.
strive more
Exactly.
than
They have a higher
competing.
bar.
Yeah,
Yes.
mhm, yeah, and so on a personal note, how has leading these global initiatives influenced you as a person, your outlook, values, family?
Beautiful question. I think I wake up every day and I think about the impact that I can make on people's lives.
Mhm,
I just want to be a beacon of light and an island of peace. What I bring to a country is that hope that we can be better. And
mhm,
that's really my driver. I want to see my country, Colombia, be a
mhm,
star in clinical research. I want to
mhm,
see the other countries in Latin America also excel
mhm.
as much as they can. I want to give them tools to at least become great in healthcare, great in research. So that's really my goal. How
Mhm.
when I'm on a traffic light in Colombia and I see a poor person asking for money with a baby, I mean,
Mhm.
like, how can I improve the life of that individual? I have to
Right.
bring industry. I have to bring more research to this country so that he or
Mhm.
she can have a better job or
Mhm.
something better, not
Yeah.
begging for money in the streets with a baby. So
Right, right.
yeah,
Yeah.
because
And
when
yeah.
these countries change their economic engine,
Mhm.
when they move from being agricultural or semi-industrial or industrial society to a knowledge society,
Mhm.
poverty levels decrease.
Mhm.
And this is proven. And just to give you some real numbers, Colombia is the most unequal place in Latin America. It will take for a baby that is born today in Colombia 11 generations, 300 years, about 300 years, to reach the income level of a regular Colombian, of an average Colombian.
Oh,
So a
wow.
baby born in poverty in Colombia today will
Yeah.
take him or her 11 generations,
Mm,
300 years. So it's
yeah.
just impossible to get out of poverty in Colombia.
Right.
That's really what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
impossible. And the same thing happens in
Mhm.
other countries, but in
Mhm.
Colombia, it's more pronounced. Don't ask me
Wow.
why, but it's more
Mhm.
pronounced.
Mhm.
In Denmark, it will probably take 2 generations for a baby
Mhm.
born in a lower socioeconomic
Mhm.
um, area. But in
Mhm.
Colombia, as I said, 300 years, 11
Wow.
generations. So it's
Mhm.
impossible to get out of poverty.
Yeah.
So the only
Yeah.
way to close that gap is to change the economic engine of the country.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
country needs to stop thinking about exporting avocados, potatoes, and bananas or
Yeah.
coffee. It has to move towards how can we export knowledge? How can we innovate? How can we issue patents?
Infrastructural changes.
Infrastructure,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's
Yeah,
not
that's
bring a
powerful.
company that makes shoes. Who cares about a company that makes shoes? No, but they create jobs. Yeah, but who cares about those jobs? I mean, bring pharmaceutical
Yeah.
companies,
Yeah.
bring cyclotron producing
Mhm.
companies, companies who want to create a cyclotron assembly
Yeah.
plant in Colombia. That's really the industry that you want to attract, not a shoe company from Italy that wants to make cheaper shoes in
Yeah.
Bogota, Colombia, because they're going to hire 20 people with little education, just going to pay them average wages, exactly, minimum salary. So, no, you need PhDs,
Yeah.
and things like
Yeah.
that.
The knowledge transfer that you're
Exactly.
always, yeah, that's been the main overarching theme of the whole
Exactly.
thing is knowledge transfer
Exactly.
to benefit all.
Yes. Yes.
Education, very important.
Exactly.
But if you could give one piece of advice to those who are young innovators and entrepreneurs dreaming of the same kind of global impact in healthcare that you have, what would it be?
I think it's about seeing money as a byproduct of your spiritual
Dream.
goals, of your dreams, exactly. But I think there is an element of spirituality here. You have to think about humanity. How can you benefit humanity?
Mhm,
How can you become a beacon of light and an island of peace when people
mhm,
see you? When you come to a place, how can you improve the lives of
mhm,
those individuals?
mhm.
And of course, the money will follow somehow later. I
Right,
think
right.
that's the main thing that I can say.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending time talking on the podcast. I know this will be a huge, very knowledgeable conversation for a lot of people on a topic that I'm sure a lot of people may not have, thought about, which
Yes.
is the goal of this podcast is to expand our perspectives and see outside of our little boxes.
Yes.
And so, what an inspiring conversation with Julio Martinez-Clark, a leader not only advancing science, but also reimagining what equity and access can look like in global healthcare. His vision for faster, more inclusive clinical research and his pioneering work in um, radiopharmaceuticals reminds us that innovation isn't just about technology, it's about the people, families, and communities gaining hope through better care. If today's episode sparked ideas or gave you a new perspective, be sure to share it with a friend or colleague. And as always, let's continue to share hope together. Thank you.
Thank you, Johanna, for having me here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us in this episode of Medicine, Motherhood, and Missions. We hope you found inspiration, insight, and a sense of connection in the stories we share today. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners like you. Follow us on Instagram for updates, free downloads, and join a community of like-minded individuals passionate about making a difference through medicine, motherhood, and mission work. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. Until next time, keep sparking hope, keep healing, keep nurturing, and keep making a difference. This is Johanna signing off from Medicine, Motherhood, and Missions. The medical opinions expressed on this podcast are for informational purposes only and should not be considered as medical advice. Always consult a licensed healthcare provider for personal medical concerns or questions. The views expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the podcast host.